Hello there my friends, welcome to my another video. Over the past 4 weeks we've been working on few Russian models and it went from 1 to 100 scale to 1 to 72nd scale, and this time I am here with a 1 to 35th scale tank. Now this is my first Tamiya model, this is T-62A in 1 to 35th scale as I've mentioned, and I don't really build this scale, but my boyfriend wanted me to try Tamiya, and since I've never tried it, he bought me this model, and today we are going to build it and do something a little more interesting than just building it. So let's get right into it. First, I take out the parts out of the sprue with my scissors. I start with the running gear. Now this is way better than building some German tank or something, because there aren't brilliant wheels but only 5 on each side, and all of them have polycaps in the middle, which is pretty cool. I've never even experienced polycaps before because I don't build this scale and they aren't really prominent in 1 to 72nd scale. I glue the pieces together using my Revel Contacta glue, and then using my sharp side cutter I make sure to clean the wheels of all of the sprue gates and the mold lines, so because these things do kind of destroy the look of the model. I also use my file to even more enhance the smooth look. You have to make sure you clean these up properly, first of all because of how you want your model to look, because offending models shouldn't really have pronounced mold lines, and also in this example you want the sprocket to engage with tracks, and the mold lines and sprue gates might interfere with that. There are some parts on the lower hull that hold the sprockets, which are the parts the rubber tracks hold on, so I make sure to glue this at the very beginning so they are the most solid part at the end. This is essentially what the instructions tell you anyway, and you also get some metal mesh, which is pretty great. I glued it with some super glue, but you don't really have to because, as you can see, it's actually held in with a plastic part as well. It was just rattling around a little, so I glued it with super glue. Now with the modification that I've mentioned, I am going to make this tank look a little more interesting. With some spare Contact 1 ERA that I have left over from a Zvezda model. Now, this isn't going to be super historically accurate, considering that this is T-62A, and I'm not replicating a particular vehicle because that would mean more changes than just adding the ERA. So what I went with instead is this kind of Street Fighter in Syria or Iraq, where the crew just stripped the ERA off of a destroyed or just not functioning model and added it to their T-62A. I'm not sure how realistic that is, probably not realistic at all, but I really like how it looked, and I'm pretty happy with the result. Sometimes to make your model more interesting you have to take some creative liberties. Then I proceeded with building the hull. I am of course not going to show you everything because there's quite a lot of parts, but this basically showed me why people love Tamiya so much. This is 50-year-old kit and it's great, everything fit together basically perfectly, there were no gaps, just minimal flash and everything. I was really surprised considering the kit's age, and I will definitely get more Tamiya kits in the future after this one, but probably in 1 to 48 scale because that's closer to my scale I am used to. Now the 115mm cannon is made out of 2 parts. There are 2 techniques how you can build this with no mold defects. One of them is using some putty, but the one I am going to show you here is using the glue itself. So what you do is you put glue all around the barrel and then you press it together and press on it really hard so the molten plastic just fills up the gaps between the two parts, and once it dries a little bit after you pressed it, you can file it down and you have essentially a perfect barrel. But you really have to, you know, hold it together for a decent period of time so it solidifies perfectly. And this basically allows you to not use any you know, putty or anything. But of course you could, because the resin wasn't completely perfect. I used the same technique on the turret as well. I hold it together and then I sand it. Of course you could use putty for it, because then you would also probably put some cast texture, but as you can see I was putting the ERA on the turret as well, and I thought the cast texture wouldn't be that prominent, and from the reference picture that I've seen is not as bad as I thought, because as you know, Russian vehicles usually have really rough cast texture. T-62s had their turrets sanded or something, as I've seen on the references, so I didn't make a cast texture for this model particularly. Now, adding the ERA was a little annoying because it had to hold itself up and it just kept falling down and stuff, but I'm pretty happy with the result. Now for the last thing I'm going to show you is how I make tarps for my models. So first I take some water and I put some PVA glue in it, and I stir it until it's properly dissolved. Then I take ordinary paper and I soak it in the glue. As you can see, while the paper was soaking in the glue, I was cleaning up some jerry cans. I got these from the 35T, if you remember. And then basically what you do, you put the tarp onto your model and you shape it the way you want. This once this dries, it's essentially as hard as a real plastic, which is really nice. Or well, depends on how much PVA glue you add, but usually it's about as hard as a plastic piece, and it creates quite realistic folds and everything. Anyway, that's going to be it for building this project. I know, another Russian vehicle, how dare I? But I promise this is going to be a last one for a while. I really enjoy Russian tanks and they are really easy to get to, but I have overwhelming numbers of them in my collection myself, so I will take a break from them. Next week's video is going to be a painting of this model. As I've mentioned, it's inspired by vehicles in Iraq and Syria, so you can probably expect some desert camouflage. So if you would like to see that, please consider subscribing to my channel and hitting the notification button. If you like the video, please like it. Tell me in the comments what you think about the result and if any of these techniques were helpful to you. If you would like to support me financially, you can also go to the description. I have my Patreon there. I will be posting pictures from the projects and some bonus reference materials there once there are some patrons there. So thank you for watching yet again, and here is the final pictures of the model.